Good morning, brothers and sisters. How are we feeling today? Pretty good? Pretty great? Yeah? Seeing some new faces. Well, welcome to Sunday service today. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'll be your MC today. My name is Clara Smith, and I appreciate you all coming out amidst the little off weather, but I think that it makes us appreciate the sunshine more, right? Yeah. Amen and aju to that. So now I'd like to kind of give a quick preview to our upcoming sermon. Pastor Mike will be giving our sermon today in line with our sermon series. So the pastors have been incredibly intentional about the type of content that they share with you on the stage every week. And this is the fifth sermon in a sermon series around, who are we and where we're going, right? And this one specifically is going to be around True Parents' vision and how we can actualize that in our own day-to-day in life. I think that is the connecting thread that we all have. It's why I'm here today. It's why I'm born. It's how my parents came together. And that's something that I'm personally really looking forward to. So that's what Pastor Mike's going to be sharing a little bit about. But beforehand, we're going to have our offering song share so that we can prepare our hearts and minds. So if you could put your attention towards the screen and feel free to close your eyes or take a moment to meditate before Pastor Mike will come up and share. It's not a song, it's a video. Thank you for keeping me honest.
For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2 talents, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered, and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it to him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
I know that the English was a little hard to understand on that one, but I'm guessing that the Mormons, they have to use a certain translation of the Bible. But I just want to go over that last part there. This is a little hard to understand, but I think that basically hopefully you all understood the basic concept behind the story, right? This is called the parable of the talents. And this wealthy man has these servants, has these 3 servants, and he gives each one of them a different amount of money, basically. I think it's funny that the Bible, or the translation is that they call them talents and money. But basically, 1 talent is roughly equal to about 20 years of work, income, for an average person. And he gives them the money. He gives each one a different amount. He gives the first one 20, he gives the second one 10, he gives the last one 1. And he says, please, invest my money, care for it. Do something with it, wise. And so the 3 servants, they do different things. One goes out and he turns that 10 talents into 20 talents. 5 to 10? Oh, sorry, 5 to 10, and then 2 to 4, and then 1. And then the last one, he just buries it in the ground. And the master comes back, and this last person gives the 1 talent. He digs it back up, and he gives it to him, and he says, here's your talent. Basically saying that, I know you're a hard man. I know you worked really hard for this money. I was afraid, so I just put it in the ground to make sure that it was in safekeeping, and I gave it back to you. And the reaction of the master seemed kind of harsh in a way. He was so proud of these other servants who, took that amount of money that he had given them and made it more. He was like, yes, and you'll be welcomed into the kingdom, basically. And then to this guy, he basically said, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops, and this is a different translation, by the way, and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now, I think that, this was a story, as you saw in the video, Jesus was sharing this story with people, his followers, people who were there to listen to him. And I think that if you were to purely look at this from the perspective of money, it would seem pretty unreasonable, pretty harsh. But I don't think anyone sees this story this way. And that's why I thought it was kind of interesting that the word talents is used, because I guess that's the translation of that amount of money. But at the same time, what Jesus is talking about here, I believe, is our gifts. Jesus is talking about the things that are given to us for our life, which could be called our talents, could be called our gifts, could be called our blessings or our passions, our lot in life. And it's interesting that the master didn't give each servant the same amount of money. And I look at that and I think, well, it's kind of like us, We all have a different lot in life. We all come from a different situation. Some of us feel like, man, I've gotten so many blessings in my life. I had such a great start, great family, not born into poverty, both parents, have friends, good job, these kind of things. And some people, you might look at your life and think, man, why did I get such a bad, I could have been born as somebody else, with a better situation. But I had the opportunity to go to an event a couple weeks ago with some of our community. It was my first opportunity to meet Tony Robbins. I don't know how many of you maybe have had the chance to. Yeah, Francois was there, Andrew was there. It was really quite an interesting experience because I've seen videos of Tony Robbins. I've heard audio tapes of Tony Robbins. I've heard things about Tony Robbins, and I was kind of interested to see what it would be like in person to meet the guy, sort of meet the guy. And one of the things that he doesn't disappoint. He's quite the amazing person, a lot of energy, and in my mind, even more amazing that he's been doing this for so many years. But one of the things that he said that I really took away from that, his presentation, was that if you want to find, oh yeah, I have it here. Here it is. And this is not a quote per se, but if you want to find fulfillment, you have to trade your expectations for appreciation. It's easy to look at our situation in life and we see all the challenges that we have. We see the difficulties. We see the areas in which we are lacking. We don't have what we wish we had. And it can be really easy to not have appreciation for the people in our lives, for the challenges that we have in our lives. And to not even notice the blessings, the talents that God has given us. But I believe that the reason why Jesus shared this story was because he wanted people to be able to recognize that every person has something. We don't all have the same things that were given to us. We don't all have the same skills. We don't have the same passions. Maybe some of you are trying to figure out, why did God put me on this earth? What is my role in this life? What should I be doing? But and some people may look like they've been given a better situation. And some people might look like they've been given a worse situation. But I think it's beautiful how in the story the master comes to the servant, even though the second servant didn't receive as much as the first servant, but he invested it. He was probably afraid of his master too. It sounds like this guy was kind of a tough guy. But he took what was given to him, he invested it, he in some ways took a risk, and he turned it into something more. He multiplied it. And when the master came back, he said, "Thank you, good and faithful servant." Even though he started off with less, he gave the same appreciation, or he gave the same blessing to that second servant. So you might wonder what this has to do with our vision series, but for those of you who are new or haven't been here in a while, we are in the middle of a series called Where Are We Going? And this basically is covering the vision statement that we've laid out, which is in the back of the room. But we really felt that at one point, we really needed to have more clarity on what we were trying to do as a community and where we're trying to go. So today's sermon is, what is True Parents' legacy and how can we further it? And this topic is based off of the last paragraph in our vision statement, and it says that we are a community that embodies the legacy of living for the sake of others and building the kingdom of heaven here on earth that our founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, who we call the True Parents, have passed on to us. Now, there's a couple areas that I want to talk about first that you may have noticed in there. First of all is to build the kingdom of heaven on earth, and then also living for the sake of others. Now, I can't spend enough time talking about our founders' vision and the legacy that they've left to us. That would just be too much to talk about in a message today. But I can talk about what I feel we can do as a community to further that legacy that's been passed on to us and how we can embody that more in our community. But I do want to touch on that real quick, because when I look at our founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, and the life that they lived, and how when Reverend Moon, when True Father got that vision from Jesus, and Jesus asked him to finish the work that he wasn't able to finish while he was alive, we recognize that Jesus didn't come just to sacrificed himself on the cross. Jesus came, his original hope, his original desire was to create God's original world here on earth. That those who came after him, those of us who are living in the time now, we could actually be living in this beautiful world that God intended for us to live in today, if Jesus had been able to finish the work that he had started. So when our founders had received the calling to finish the work that Jesus wasn't able to complete, then they took it so seriously that we have to solve the problems in the world. And they didn't do it just by starting a church, even though that was a part of it. But when we look at the life, when you read about our founder's life, when you read the autobiography, we see that they invested into pretty much every aspect of life that you would consider to be relatively important. They invested into business. They invested into NGOs, education, government, music, martial arts, science, interreligious dialogue, peace in the Middle East, feeding the hungry, arts, sports, marriage and family, purity education, and even the tourist industry. And I think that it's really important for us to remember that. If we're thinking about what is it that we can do as a community to help further this legacy of building the kingdom of heaven on earth, then we have to think a little bit more broadly about all the different areas in which our founders touched the world, or at least tried to touch the world. And think, how can we touch those areas of life? That's why I get so inspired. One of our members is buying a poke restaurant. Do you know about that? In 16th Street Mall. And that's really exciting to me. Not because, God, the world needs another poke restaurant. You know what poke is, right? Okay, sorry. It's kind of a new trend in the Japanese sushi world. So a poke is fish. Well, I don't know if that's a translation, but it's basically a fish bowl with rice and other seasonings and sauces and things like that. And raw fish, yes, thank you. And it's very popular now, partly because it's very quick. It's very convenient. It's almost like Chipotle. You go and you're like, how big of a size do you want? What kind of rice do you want? What fish do you want? And they just put it in like a assembly line kind of thing, and then it's a quick lunch. So anyway, sidetrack there, but new poke restaurant. And I get really excited about that because we look at the world and we've got all the things that are in the world already, right? We've got schools, we've got politics, we've got restaurants, we've got sports, we've got music, we've got all these different aspects that I talked about. But how many in those areas can we really feel like God's presence in those areas of life? How much do we really feel like God is a part of the entertainment industry? How much do we feel like God is a part of the tourist industry? How much do we feel like God is a part of our institutions, our schools, our government, the way we do things on a daily basis? And so I feel like part of our job, or our responsibility as religious people, or people of faith, is to find ways that we can bring the two together. Also, some of our members are talking about the idea of starting a school. And I think that would be so wonderful, to be able to bring a God-centered way of taking care and teaching students from a young age into the school system, but without sacrificing the academic standards. I don't know how many of you guys realize what a blessing it is that we have this park coming in next door. My dad was talking with the superintendent or supervisor he's in charge of the whole project. And he said that this park is the most complicated, the most advanced park not just in the city of Denver, not even just in the state of Colorado, or free is important to mention, but in the entire United States of America. It's crazy. And I just have a hard time feeling like that's a coincidence. I mean, I don't care. It's great one way or the other. And I always try to believe that God has a hand in it. But it's such a blessing for us. It's such a blessing for us. It could look, in some ways, somebody could look at that as a curse. I know people who complain. They're like, oh, how come we got a park? We have new people coming in. It's raising the value of properties and the taxes and things like that. But really for us, I really believe that this is a blessing. And I really want to take the parable to heart. That when we receive a blessing then from God, then we have the heart to not just keep it for ourselves and be like, oh, this is great for us, but also how can we multiply it and how can we make it more meaningful than it already is? The next part of that vision statement is living for the sake of others, right? This is something that our founders talked about all the time, a lot, living for the sake of others. Almost to the point where I feel like we kind of killed it almost. almost like when the words come up, people shut off their ears. But I couldn't help but feel like it needed to be in there. It needed to be in there. And it's such a beautiful phrase, living for the sake of others, that you just don't hear it very often. You don't hear it very commonly spoken. Living for others, many times, if we want to have that kind of a mindset where we are living with consideration of other people's needs and how we can serve others, many times really requires letting go of what is comfortable for me, what I like, and doing what is best for others, even if it doesn't seem like it's the best for me. When I look at a lot of churches, a lot of homes, it's very common that the church or the home or the business is decorated or built or catered in a way that is comfortable or is inspiring to the people who are in there. And I think that's kind of natural. We do it. We live in the parsonage next door and we decorate it the way that we like, right? But I was reading this article about this multi-million-dollar homes in Denver, right? Because we have a number of them, especially if you go east. And they were talking about this $5 million home in this article. And when I see $5 million home, I'm really curious, like, what's in that house? Why is it worth $5 million? Was this owned by, the founder of the state of Denver or the city of Denver or something? What's special about this house? Because I think it's kind of hard to actually build a house and make it worth that much money. But I know it's possible. But so I was reading about this house, and basically this house is like a 7,000 square foot house in the middle of Denver, which is why it's worth $5 million. But one of the things that surprised me when I was reading it was there was only like 4 or 5 bedrooms. And I thought to myself, I don't know, me and Adonia, we dream about, sometimes we drive around the neighborhoods and we look at houses and we think, we'd like to have a house like that, or we'd like to have a house like that. And we'd like to build our house. That's kind of a dream of ours. And we think about having a bunch of rooms in there because for us, we've always had other people living with us. Even now, we have people living with us. But, we'd love to be able to someday have her parents living with us and my parents living with us, and have young couples who are just getting started on life living with us. And for us, when we see 7,000 square foot house, we think, how many rooms you could have in there? How many bedrooms could you fit in a 7,000 square foot house? But the reason I talk about that is because we oftentimes we want things to be the way that they are because we want things to be the way we like them to be. We like our church to look a certain way that we feel comfortable with. We like our house to look a certain way that we feel we like. But when we're talking about a church and we're talking about a vision statement and we're talking about wanting to serve others and be a place that others can come to, then we have to think a little bit differently about things. one of the things about having a vision, and part of the reason I'm talking about this today is because this is the last sermon of our vision series. This is the last one. And so we won't be talking about this for a little while. And, we spent the last 6 weeks going over each of the vision statements and why they're important and why, trying to kind of all get on the same page about it. But I imagine that there's probably some of you who are like, what's the point? Haven't we had vision statements in the past? Haven't we had mission statements in the past? Haven't we talked about, this is the next thing we're going to do this year. This is the thing we're going to focus on now. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. I just imagine there might be some of you. And you're right. I mean, what good is a vision statement? It's kind of like if you were to come to the beginning of the year, January 1st, and you were to decide, well, I'm gonna make some changes in my life. I'm gonna make some New Year's resolutions, or I'm gonna make some decisions, and I am going to get healthy, or maybe I wrote some down here. Let's see. I am gonna make a lot of money this year, or let's say I want to have a certain kind of marriage. I want to work on my marriage a lot this year, or I want to. Maybe I want my kids to turn out a certain way. I wrote that down. And, we get ideas often, right? Kind of similar to what we're doing now with the church. Like, what do we want to do? What do we want to invest ourselves in going forward for the next 10 or 20 years or 30 years? We do that for our life, right? It's no different. But if I was to come to you and say, this year I'm really going to get healthy, and you were to ask me, what are you doing? What are you going to do? And you were to say, you know what? I'm just going to think about it. I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to hope something good happens. I'm just going to hope that things get better, or things go in the direction I'd like them to go. You would think that you were kind of crazy, or just like not serious about actually making that vision work. And one of the things about having a vision statement is that it represents something that we're not. It represents something we want, and I've said this every week, right, or that I've spoken. It represents something where we want to be, but it's not where we are today. That's not a bad thing. But then the question is, how do you get from where we're at today, where we don't necessarily embody this vision that we're talking about, to where we want to be? How do you get from where you're at in your life? Let's say, for example, you're having a difficult relationship with your kids. They're not growing up the way you want them to grow up. Or maybe you don't have the amount of money that you'd like to have, and so you want to get wealthy. Or you want to get fit. You want to get healthier. How do we get from point A to point B? That's the question everybody wants to know. Many of you have done that. You've gone from point A to point B, so you know what I'm going to say. But fundamentally, what it comes down to is, if we're going to have a vision and we're going to be serious about getting to where we want to be, then we have to take the steps, we have to take the risks, and we have to do the things that are involved in order to get us to where our vision says we want to be. My wife and I were talking, was it this week, about the kids? Yeah, just this week about the kids. And we were saying how, it's so easy for the kids. They get caught up. They're in school during a lot of the day. And, they come home. They're with us for a couple hours. We eat dinner, go to bed, start over, And they're so excited. They're so excited. They love their Pokemon cards. And they love their game time every day. And, these are things that are so interesting in their life. And, we talk about God with them. We talk about spiritual things with them. But it's not always easy to compete with those other things that are exciting in their life, too. And as they get older, it's just going to get more complicated. Friendships can seem to be more important to you than your relationship with your parents, or your relationship with God, or praying, or these kind of things. And our older boys are 8, our boys are 8, Mia's 6, and we started really thinking like, what can we do proactively as parents? Because we really want our kids to grow up. We want to be responsible to give our kids different opportunities to explore their faith and make their faith real to them. Not just their parents' faith, the things that we've always told them. Yes, we read Bible stories with them. Yes, we talk about our church with them. We talk about God with them. But how does it become real to them? So this is kind of an interesting, this is for us kind of where we're at right now. Our vision is we really want our kids to have their own life of faith. We really want our kids to have made their faith their own, hopefully by the time that they're an adult, or at least that they can have the experiences and knowledge necessary for them to make their own decision in an educated way, in a responsible way. But no one's going to make that happen for us. You know, we can talk about it all we want. We can say how much we'd like to see that happen, but it's not going to happen by itself. And we can't depend on someone to do that for us. So we've actually been talking about how we want to make more effort instead of putting them to get to bed playing a game on the phone, to read some books that we have about testimonies and what it is to have a relationship with God. And we're also talking about taking a family trip to the Middle East, to visit Jerusalem, to visit this area where so much of the Bible is based off of, so they can see it firsthand. And we're also talking about going to Korea, where our movement started, so that they can visit the different holy sites and the original church, and go to our different places that are meaningful for us, so that they can have their own personal experience in a family, in a family context, even though maybe they're only 8 or 9 or 10 years old. So we don't know how realistically we're going to do this. It's very expensive to take 6 people to another country, right? 6 airplane tickets and food and lodging. Where are you going to stay? And what are you going to even do when you get there? And we still have really young one, but when we talk about it, we get excited, because it's not just a like vague idea out there. Oh, we really hope our kids have their own life of faith. We get excited because actually we have a way to get there. I mean, there's no guarantees, right? It's a risk. It might just be a waste of money. It might just be a waste of effort. But that's always the way it goes when you're investing into something for the long run. There's no guarantees, but you invest into it anyway because the potential returns are so great. So I need to talk a little bit about so the purpose of us having a vision is so that we as a church, as a community, can feel like we are doing things purposefully. And we're not just coming to church, sitting in service every week, hoping that something good is going to happen, but that we are actually working towards a purpose, with energy and enthusiasm, with a clear understanding of what we're actually trying to do. And I hope this is helping with that. I know it's helping us with it a lot. It's really actually been such an awesome experience. But I want to share, what is this here? So one of the things I took away from reading Rick Warren's book on Purpose-Driven Church is that there are 5 areas of a healthy church. I think you could pretty much apply this to any business or family or even your own personal life. But especially in the context of we have a church community, there's the outreach component, there's the worship component, or what I'd like to call attendance and filial piety. There's the fellowship component, the time we spend together, the discipleship component, and then the ministry component, service to the broader community. He says that this is really great, but it is the natural tendency of leaders to emphasize what they feel strongly about and neglect what they feel less passionate about. Around the world, you can find churches that have become an extension of their pastor's giftedness. Unless you set up a system and a structure to intentionally balance the 5 purposes, your church will tend to overemphasize the purpose that best expresses the gifts and passion of its pastor. Integrating, let me just stop for a minute on that. So when I read this the first time about a year ago, I realized that this is really true. Adonia and I feel really passionate about certain things, but we don't feel so passionate about other things. And some of those things are on this list. Yet, there's a challenge there because we want to have a healthy church. And according to Rick Warren, if you want to have a healthy church and you want to have a healthy community, you need to have a balance of all these things. So if we feel really passionate about, for example, fellowship, building a sense of community and family, which is kind of one of the areas of which we really feel passionate about, then but maybe we don't feel so passionate about some of these other areas. How do we compensate for that? How do we help our community to continue to be healthy? Because just focusing on one, none of these are bad, right? They're all good, right? As you can imagine, these are all good things. But if a community focuses all its resources and all its energy on outreach, that could be a really great thing, right? But we don't have a strong component in the other areas, then you could see, I personally feel, and when I see this, that can become very unhealthy situation. It's kind of like you saying you want to be really healthy and you want to eat something that's really healthy, so I'm just going to eat broccoli all day, every day. And broccoli is really good for you, right? But what's going to happen? You're going to get sick. It's not healthy to just eat broccoli all day, every day. It might be okay for a little while. So our tendency is to try to emphasize what I feel passionate about and to think it's more important than all these other things. I see that a lot with maybe, for example, young people. We really feel passionate about sometimes like youth education or like young adult stuff or Sunday school, these kind of things. Well, today, like a lot of our older kids are at the Flatirons megachurch. I think it's the biggest church in Colorado, because they're out there having an experience. They're visiting the church. They want to see they want to give these kids an opportunity to see the other churches and see what it's like, synagogues, mosques, temples, whatever. And that's a great thing. But if somebody says that's more important than outreach or that's more important than fellowship, then we get into a difficult situation because actually we need all these things. We need the inreach and the outreach. We need the nurturing and we need the expression of love for the people, not just for ourselves. If we take too much care of ourselves and we don't think to try to bring anyone new into it, that's not healthy. If we make too much effort to bring in new people, but we don't care for the people we already have, that's not healthy. But the tendency is to naturally gravitate toward whatever the leadership feels more strongly about. So, he says you have to be purposeful about it. You have to make a system that emphasizes all 5 areas equally so that they're all made sure that they're taken care of. I'm talking about this because this is what it takes. This is part of the process of getting from an idea on a board to a reality. The reality. Let's see here. He says, integrating your purposes, the vision, into every area and aspect of your church's life is the most difficult phase of becoming a purpose-driven church. Anybody can come up with a vision statement. Making the leap from a purpose statement to purpose-driven actions requires leadership that is totally committed to the process. The application of your purposes will require months, maybe even years, of praying, planning, preparing, and experimenting. Take it slow. Focus on progress, not perfection. The end result in your church will look different from Saddleback and every other purpose-driven church. So, We all like to see things happen quickly. We all like to see changes happen quickly. But the reality is, when we're in the process of taking whatever is driving us now to something different or something better, then it's a process involved. It's not just a simple matter of saying, okay, we have our vision now, everyone recite the vision, and let's live this way, and let's do this every day, and then we're going to get there. I don't think it works like that. Because everything that we have now is a product of the way we did things before. So what does it look like realistically? Practically, what does it look like that we actually take this vision and we actually integrate it into our community? Well, first of all, like I said, a proactive effort to make balanced ministries. Those 5 ministries we talked about. In order for us to have, number 1, we are a place where people from all walks of life can find love, acceptance, inspiration, guidance, purpose, joy, and fulfillment. We need to create a more welcoming culture in our church. Right? I mean, it's just natural, right? That's got to happen if we want to fulfill this vision point. Without creating a welcoming culture in our church, we will never fulfill this point. I'm happy to say that in the 3.5 years that we've been here, I have watched with joy and amazement that the culture in our church really has changed a lot. I really feel a lot more welcome and embrace and just willingness to bring in new people and just welcome people where they're at. It's really awesome. It didn't used to be that way. As my dad can attest to, he was the pastor here for 12 years. He knows very well. We need a willingness to invest into people for the long run, to nurture people's faith and to heal wounds. We need to teach and testify about God working in our lives and how we can do that through living a principled lifestyle of prayer, devotion, and service. We need to invest into self-growth and self-development, both in character, relationships, and all areas of life. We need to encourage and develop diverse ministries. We need to invest into families and youth. We need a well-developed way to introduce new people to our church and help them through the process of becoming a part of our family and our community. And we need to invest into the beautification of our property and making it more welcoming and more usable for different things. So some things that you might see. I told you, right, at the beginning of the year in January that this is a year where we're going to see a lot of changes. And it might not be exactly what you're thinking, but in order for us to create in reality the vision that we want to see happen, we have to change the way that we do things. We have to change the way that we think. We have to change the way that we give sermons, the way that we do music, the way that we even meet and approach people, with the mindset that we are working to fulfill this. I foresee that in the future, as we continue to grow, we won't be just having one service on a Sunday morning. What I think will happen is that once we get to a certain point, we will keep the Sunday service as a seeker-sensitive service, because Sunday morning is the morning that's most likely for somebody to come if they're not a churchgoer, if they're not a religious person, through surveys that somebody else did. I know this. And then we'll have a separate service that's more intensive some other day of the week, or maybe later that day, or something like that. We'll have guest parking, Make sure that our guests, our new people, have a place to park. We don't have a lot of parking out there, right? Even when the park is done, we don't have a lot of parking. So shouldn't the best parking spots, the ones right next to the door, shouldn't those be reserved for people who are new? If we really actually serious about bringing new people into our community and sharing what we have, sharing our blessings, sharing our talents, that would be a practical step we could take, right? We could just have a couple parking spots right there that we just say, only guests, new people. And then, of course, once those people come for a while and they feel comfortable, then they can park 3 blocks away or whatever, But isn't it common, though, that in many churches that the best parking lots are reserved for, I mean, this isn't Walmart. We don't have an employee of the month parking spot, guys. We don't have like parking spots for deacons and elders. If we're really serious that we are a community that's wanting to be a benefit to the world, to serve the world, and not just to take care of ourselves, then we need to take the practical steps to also make that happen. We may look at redesigning this chapel because pews are unfortunately only usable for sitting. Only thing you can do in a pew is to sit, or maybe sleep. That's another possibility, or both at the same time. But maybe, for example, someday we want to do so. We want to have some other things in here. It's a nice big room, but you can't do much with it with the pews. And I have no problem with pews. I grew up going to a Catholic Mass, and I loved it, honestly. I actually had a really good experience, and I had no problem with the wooden pews. These are more comfortable than those. And having the little kneeling thing that comes down, you kneel on it, and you do the genuflex, and you get the holy water at the beginning, everything like that. I have no problem with any of that. But we only have one building, and I'd love to see that change in the future, but we want to be able to use it for different things, and have more events in here, maybe even host some venues, make some extra money or whatever. Then that's probably something we're going to end up looking at pretty seriously it may not happen this year, but not too far away. It also means that we're changing the way we do our finances. It means that we're trying to find ways to become more transparent, trying to find ways to be more accountable, to make sure that when we're spending money, we know really clearly what our situation is, and make sure that we're really doing it with integrity, that we're really doing it with a knowledge. You all have to manage your own finances, right? You know how easy it is to spend money without knowing how much money you got. You know how easy it is to pull out that credit card and be like, well, I got a credit card. I got money in the bank. I got a credit card. And you get the bill at the end of the month and you realize, wow, okay, more than I was expecting. Isn't it always more, never less? So, anyway, there's a lot to talk about in this area, and I don't know if, hold up here. The end result is that, God's given us we have something to work with. We have something to start with, right? We may not be the mega church down the road. We may not, have the most amazing music. We may not have the most amazing sermons. We may not have the most amazing building. But we have what we have. And I think that just like everything in our life, if we want to be happy, if we want to be fulfilled, and we want to move forward, we have to appreciate what we have. We have to recognize the talents that God has given us. And we have to find the ways that we can multiply those talents, that we can offer something back to God. We don't want to be afraid. Thank you. We can't be afraid to invest ourselves. We can't be afraid to take risks and try different things. And I believe that if we are to do these things, if we are to take this vision seriously, and we really were to conduct ourselves purposefully in our community in a way that we work towards this vision statement, not that we make it there in a year, in a couple of years, but we just take the steps little by little. Every day, every week, we just make another step. We forge a new relationship. We overcome a new struggle. We try something different. Then we will get there eventually. And then we'll set a higher vision. So just to finish off, we're just going to go through this. We're going to go through this one last time. We are a place where people from all walks of life can find love, acceptance, inspiration, guidance, purpose, joy, and fulfillment. We are a church that isn't a church, but a family where the experience of community, love, and God's grace abound. We are every person growing to spiritual maturity through studying God's word, prayer, making devotions, small groups, and taking on a ministry to care for the needs of and give to others. We are equipping every person for a significant ministry by helping them discover the gifts and talents that God gave them. We are building God-centered marriages and families that are the dwelling place of God and the cornerstone of a healthy society. We are sharing with the people of the Denver area truth that has been hidden in the Bible until now, God's original purpose of creation, how humanity fell away from God, and our path to returning to God's ideal and dream. We own a beautiful and modern building that serves as the hub for all of our many family and faith-based activities going on throughout the week. And lastly, we are a community that embodies the legacy of living for the sake of others and building the kingdom of heaven here on earth that our founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, whom we call the true parents, have passed on to us. Thank you. It's not a perfect vision statement. I'm sure there's areas which could be improved, but it's what we have. And I'm sure many of you are reading that. You're like, we're not there. That's the point. We're not there, but we need a place to go to. We need a place to work towards. And I think that's a pretty good one. And I feel inspired to work towards it, and I hope that we can all work towards it together. So with that being said, please join me in prayer. Our dearest Heavenly Parent, thank you, Heavenly Parent. So grateful for everybody coming here in the gloomy weather, in the dealing with the traffic and the marathon today. And I just feel so much hope when I stand here and I look out at the faces in this room, and I just reminded every day, Heavenly Parent, that we're in this together and we all want the same thing. We may not all express it in the same way. We all have different passions and interests, and that's fine, and that's the way it should be, Heavenly Parent. But I pray that as a community that we can find a common vision, maybe this vision, that we can work together, because we know that we've been given so much. We have our challenges, we have our shortcomings, but we also know that we have our talents, we have our gifts, we have our passions, we have the things that you gave us. And you have a plan for us, on our lives, personally, but also for this church, for this community. You want to use us to do something great. You want to use it to do something bigger than even we could do as individuals, Heavenly Parent. And I just pray that as the leadership and as all of us here together, that we can invite you to be a part of what we're doing, that you can be a part, you can be living and breathing in our actions, in our families, in our lives, that we can be experiencing you in our daily lives, and that we can be bringing that to the people, and we can be actionizing that in our lives. We know that we're not going to be able to live in this heavenly world. You know, we all here were born at a time where we're living in this world that's full of suffering. It's full of strife. It's full of conflict, and a lot of people suffer. Nobody gets to live in the ideal that you envisioned for your children. But Heavenly Parent, we want to put that aside. We want to thank you for our lives, even the challenges. We want to recognize and appreciate all the gifts, the blessings, the talents that you've given to us. And we promise, Heavenly Parent, as a community, that we will multiply. We won't just dig it in the ground. We won't bury it. We won't just try to keep it for ourselves. But we're going to multiply it, Heavenly Parent. We're going to find a way to multiply it through expressing the individual gifts and talents that you've given to us, so that we can be a part of helping to build this world, this heavenly world that we may not be able to live in it, Heavenly Parent, but we want it for our children, we want it for our descendants, we want it for future generations, to be able to look back and with awe to see that the people of our time cared so much for them and for the future. I'm grateful that we could all be here today. I'm grateful that we could be, on this journey together to talk about the vision for our community, Heavenly Parent. You know better than anybody that we're not there. We're not there as a community, we're not there as families, and we're not there as individuals, Heavenly Parent. But I pray that we can catch a vision for our lives, if we haven't already, that can help us on life's journey to support one another, to bring people into it, Heavenly Parent, and we can grow ourselves to reflect you and to reflect goodness and truth in our life, Heavenly Parent. And I offer this prayer in the name of Michael and Adonia Hendrick. Bless Central Family. Amen and Aju. Thank you so much, everybody.
So we're going to transition. We have a couple of announcements here. So please put your eyes towards the screen as we go through them. There's not that many today, but some really exciting ones to go through. Most importantly, we have our 4th annual Spring Refresh next Saturday. Woohoo! Yeah, we can do a round of applause for that, right? Absolutely. So I'd like everybody to take out their phones in church. I know that's a little taboo, and please feel free to save the date in your phone calendar, okay? It's going to be this Saturday, May 26th, right before Memorial Day, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I mean, what's better than a bouncy house with a water slide, right? Absolutely. Barbecue, games, music, spring projects, painting, tree removal, table making, and park fence removal. So it's a pretty cool event where you get to learn some new skills in case you feel like you want to learn anything here. And it's also a great time to just hang out with the community and refresh all together. So I want to make sure to say a sincere thank you to Byron and Dasha Yoder over here for generously providing the barbecue. Thank you very much. I can't wait to eat it next Saturday. So who are we, right? This is a common question that we get, and I'm sure you even ask yourself, who am I, right? The pastors here have provided a really great session and presentation, and whether you're a new or a longtime member interested in understanding who we are as a community, who we are as the Denver Family Church, there's going to be a short presentation today about the future of the community, and it's going to be given by our very own Pastor Mike. It'll start at 12:15 today. So for anybody who wants to kind of replug back in and understand who we are and where we're going so that we can own our future together, please make sure to check out this event. And we have a short video here, so everybody please turn your attention towards the screen.
Here we are at Oceanside, California, Spring Hill Suites Marriott for our 5th Blessed Marriage Project Energize Retreat.
This has been an amazing experience, and we have an amazing staff that have worked so hard together to put on a special retreat for blessed couples.
I say the highlight has been spending time alone with my wife, sleeping in a room uninterrupted by the household activities, strolling the beach together, spending time together. It's really been nice.
The beauty of the Energize Retreat is that it gives couples a chance to really have space to talk and learn about ways to enhance their marriage. You can go from a marriage that's maybe on the rocks a little bit to one that is solid. You can go from a marriage that is great to one that is even greater. It gives couples a chance to meet them where they're at. And we don't make any presumptions, and we just give you tools to bring your marriage to the next level.
The high point for me, it's all high points. Everything is high. There's nothing that was not important. And if you don't come here, you really can't get it, because really there is such a vulnerability that you have to be a part of this. And there's nothing pretend about this gathering we had here at this Energize program. What really I feel was most important coming from this is this hope, incredible hope for our relationship. You know, that there's so much more to be able to build on and to be able to have practical, sensible ways to really develop love.
At the beginning of the retreat, they told us if we could spend the weekend not really focusing on some of the little things that normally annoy us, just kind of let go and not react to them at all. And it was really nice to just kind of not feel the need to just react of like any sort of like little fidgety things that don't really matter in the long run, but just kind of to be free from feeling the need to react. It was nice.
What I find truly remarkable about these retreats is that we're bringing together couples that want to enhance their marriages. And feeding off that energy and that excitement of each other, we have a whole experience where we can support one another and hold each other accountable.
There was so much people who have gone through certain things and been able to now genuinely give to us. We're talking second generation young people who have children now that really were able to bring something to us and show us how to keep our love alive.
I just wanted to, I know most of you have heard about the Energized Retreat already, but we just want to share, probably in the next coming weeks, we'll share a little tidbit every week to kind of give you a taste of what you might get out of going it, what the experience might be like, things you can look forward to. Just in the past week, we've had a number of people pouring in their responses of going, both from this community. I had 2 more confirmed this morning, and from other states as well. So I'm really excited about it. Just a couple of logistical details. The price, the full cost of this price, including the lodging and the food and the staff and the materials and everything, would be over $900 per couple, but it's being offered at $499 until June 3rd. That's when the early bird pricing ends, and then it goes up to $549. So mark June 3rd as the deadline to register if you'd like to go. But on top of that, the Blessed Family Project is offering scholarships as well. So you can apply for a 25 or 50% scholarship online. And then for the first 10 couples who register from our community, we're offering an additional 25% scholarship. So you could get up to 75% off, and I think that's workable for almost everybody for the value of what you get. It's not just a weekend in the mountains. It's a time to really create something new, to solidify your relationship. The results that you get out of it, you can't even imagine until you do it. So just putting that out there. Please let Mike or I know if you want to go so we can put you down. We can get your spot for the scholarship lined up. And we're really looking forward to all of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Adonia. Yeah, just this week I had 3 people reach out to me asking me if I was going to go. So I'm going to be that person for you and ask you, are you going to go? You know? All right, so we're going to move ahead. I think that the last announcement we had here, just like Pastor Adonia said, the details in Granby, Colorado, June 29th through July 1st. And then the last one, I wanted to sincerely thank the Vogenthaler family, who will be kind of putting their faith into action and volunteering around cooking and cleaning and preparing a meal for us next week. So let's give a round of applause to the Vogenthaler family. And a special thank you to the Tamayo family, who's cooking right now as we speak to prepare a wonderful meal for us during lunchtime.